We're speaking with Professor Ho-Fung Hung of Johns Hopkins University about the national idea in the People's Republic of China. And Professor Hung, earlier in the day in the public session, you were talking about the difference in China between concepts of nationhood under the Westphalian system and the idea of China as a civilizational state. Could you tell us the difference between these two ideas?
Yeah, China or the Chinese civilization, the idea of Chinese civilization has been around for a long time, since the imperial period that as defined by Confucianism, and also have some mixture with Buddhism and Taoism and all these Asian religions. And this Chinese civilization that include not only religions and perception of order and family and things like that, but also include institutions like the civil servant system and education and all these things. And historically, it has been influential beyond the Chinese Empire. It has been copied in Korea, it has been copied in Vietnam, and many, and even in Japan. For a long time, the Japan looked to Chinese civilization as a model of governance and order. So this Chinese civilization or Confucianist civilization has been around for a long time, and it covers a vast area in East Asia. But when East Asia was incorporated into the Westphalia system through the history of colonialism and imperialism, then the Chinese intellectuals and elites talking about building a Chinese nation as a Westphalia, as a member of the Westphalia system, as a sovereign nation state. It has been the dream of the Chinese nationalists for more than hundreds of years. What they're talking about is to build a Chinese nation that is independent, autonomous from foreign incursion, and take care of their own business. And then, as in the words of Sun Yat-sen, is standing equally in the forest of nations, be equal with other powers and with particularly Western powers. So I think that, for a long time, this notion of China as a sovereign nation and prevailed, and then the Chinese civilization put in the sideline in the Chinese quest for being an independent sovereign nation state.
Now, you mentioned China in the East Asian context. Recently, some major Chinese geostrategic thinkers have said that East Asia, the Far East, the Orient, these were Western and European concepts that were imposed on China, and that China's task now, in accordance with its rising power, is to reject those contexts, to reject those geostrategic concepts, and to recover this old idea of China as the Middle Kingdom, which would give China the strategic and conceptual power to look out at the world in whichever direction it chose to look at, not as part of a Western-defined Orient or Far East. Is this proposal consistent with a traditional Chinese worldview, or is this something radical and new?
I think there's both continuity and break in it, and then I see China nowadays is in the transition period because before the 1990s, before the 1980s, ever since the 19th century, the agenda of the Chinese elite, of the Chinese state elite, has been to exonerate China from Western domination, to establish China as an equal sovereign nation state, equal with Western power and other power. But now this project has finished, has been successful. That China, nobody will see China as a kind of a puppet of any Western power. China is already a strong power, even a superpower. And then all the talk about G2, G America, China becoming equal with the United States. So China has done with this struggle to become an independent nation. But now that China is moving to solve another question, that is, after China becoming a strong power, a superpower, at least in East Asia, how it should situate itself and how it should situate its own relation with other superpowers like the United States, or even including India and Russia, then it comes to a difficult question, because there's a lot of perception and discussion within China nowadays about looking back to the history of the Sino-centric tributary system, that China is the Middle Kingdom in East Asia, and all these smaller countries or vessels, tribal vessels, are submissive to the Chinese Empire, and looking to China as an example, and being loyal politically to China as well. And then there's quite a strong voice, at least among many intellectuals, public intellectuals, that it's kind of ideal international order in Asia, and you can still even see some of the influence in the language of sometimes the diplomats when they're referring to and other Asian countries having some territorial dispute and things like that, like Philippines with China. They sometimes inadvertently referred them as small countries. So, and so from a China perspective, it is all right, of course, but from the perspective of the smaller countries, the neighbors of China, it might not sound that well. And then when China talking about that the U.S. and the West should respect China as a powerful country, that China at the same time need to tackle the question of how to make China's labor, sometimes, many times, smaller labors like in Southeast Asia and in Northeast Asia, to view China with less guard and less seeing China less as a threat, but an equal partner as well. So what is at play here is not only China and the U.S. and China and other Western countries, but also some other Asian countries that they lead to, the Chinese leader lead to make them feel safe to enter into also an equal relationship with China.
Well, thank you, Professor Hung, for coming to the
Thank
Wilson
you.
Center.
Thank you.